In the early 19th century, the farmland was developed, and Tribeca was transformed into New York's most fashionable residential area.
During the first half of the 19th century, the area that we now know as Tribeca was centered around the bucolic St. John's Park. It was a private park, and only the people who lived nearby had a key. But in 1866, the park was sold to Cornelius Vanderbilt for $1 million. He had the park leveled, and in its place, he constructed a train depot.
Tribeca, then known as the Lower West Side, was transformed into a grim industrial slum that centered around the train yards.
In the early 1900s, the depot was torn down, and the area that was once the playground of the rich became the exit rotary for the Holland Tunnel.
However, if you know what to look for, you can still see the outline of St. John's Park.
Tribeca has again reemerged as a glamorous place to live. It's home to trendy restaurants, upscale boutiques, and multi-million-dollar lofts.
In the aftermath of the 2001 attacks, Robert De Niro wanted to contribute to the recovery of Lower Manhattan, and so the Tribeca Film Festival was founded.
Join me on my quest to reveal the secrets of Tribeca's landmark film locations.
1903. The movie Godfather 2 revisits the era in flashbacks and tells the story of events that shaped the Godfather's life. And in Tribeca, a building is constructed that decades later will be at the center of a fight against fires and spirits. New York City is the largest fire department in the United States. They battle blazes in skyscrapers, on bridges, and in tunnels. And these extraordinary challenges led to the creation of the department's motto, New York's Bravest.
My journey to identify Tribeca's secrets brings me here, to the FDNY's Hook and Ladder number 8. This firehouse is one of New York City's most famous movie locations.
Hook and Ladder 8 served as the headquarters building for the 1984 smash hit movie Ghostbusters.
The makers of the film really were trying to avoid the cliche of the haunted house on the hill. And of course, the natural metaphor was the fire department. You know, instead of putting out a fire, you put out a ghost.
Starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis, the movie grossed more than $238 million.
These characters pulling out of that old firehouse in that souped-up hearse, that pretty much put Tribeca on the map.
This firehouse has become a larger-than-life presence in the imagination of audiences everywhere.
Hook and Ladder 8 is renowned for its role in the Ghostbusters movies, but here's a little-known fact. It's still a working firehouse. They organized in 1865 and moved into this building in 1903.
However, the fire department is far older than Hook and Ladder 8. In 1658, the city established its first fire company.
During the Dutch period in New York City, there was a requirement that every able-bodied male should make himself available to volunteer for firefighting.
After the British conquered the city, every house and business was forced to have a fire bucket.
And men carried the buckets of water, passed them along to each other, to those at the front of the line to throw in the fire. And women and children had the empty buckets brought back along the line to be refilled.
Through the mid-19th century, New York City's fire department was an all-volunteer force. They were known as fire companies and got involved in the rough and tumble ethnic rivalries that characterized life at the time.
The volunteer fire companies were anything but unpaid. They received payment for their services from insurance companies or from property owners.
A lot of insurance companies had markers on the doors, and that company would be responsible for that building.
In some cases, only the first arriving company would be paid. This led to fierce competition.
So if there was a building somewhere between two fire companies, it would not be unusual for fights and brawls to break out while the fire is raging.
Some men joined the fire companies to prove their courage and skill. But others realized that membership was often the first step toward a career in politics.
Boss Tweed had his roots in these fire companies, and Boss Tweed's growing through the ranks, becoming a political leader, led to the establishment of Tammany Hall.
Tammany Hall was the Democratic Party political machine.
Saturday will essentially control politics for the better part of a century in the city.
Eventually, the threat of large fires and the disorganization of the volunteers led to reforms. In 1865, the volunteers gave way to a paid professional force.
The FDNY modernized when they went from a volunteer to a paid professional force. And over the last century, they've been at the forefront of the latest in firefighting tactics and technology.
Today, there are more than 11,000 uniformed officers and firefighters.
The facade of Hook and Ladder number 8 is a well-known New York City landmark, but it conceals a unique structural change. This building used to be twice the size of what it is now.
In 1914, during construction of the subway, the city decided to widen Varick Street.
And when the city was making the West Side Line, they actually chopped the firehouse in half.
So they wound up, they took the finished side of the firehouse, they saved that, moved it over to make it from a 2-bay to a 1-bay firehouse.
I'm standing in front of the entrance of my secret. Sandwiched between the upper stories of this firehouse are secret floors. No one alive today can explain why they were built. For decades, these floors were sealed and forgotten. When firemen recently opened them, they found journals and logbooks here in these rooms. These documents describe life in this firehouse as it was lived more than a century ago.
There's journals and there's book evaluations on firefighters from 1907, 1902.
The logs are a unique look back in time.
The company journal would be like a ship's logbook. The fire department is very, if you want to call it, sea-oriented. The entries would include the fires and things going on.
They're interesting. It's the old calligraphy, who worked there, the comings and goings, how they operated.
And the ledgers hint that Hook and Ladder 8 was the place to be to earn your stripes.
Back in that day, Tribeca and Soho that you know today, back then was known as Hell's 100 Acres. It was known for the amount of fire, the large number of fires, a lot of tough fires back in the turn of the century.
Ghostbusters immortalized this firehouse in the movies, but the true ghosts of the past are the recently discovered tales of the firemen who used to live here. My search for the secrets in Tribeca continues.
1799. The movie Sleepy Hollow goes back in time to that year. It depicts Washington Irving's headless horseman terrorizing a small town. In that same year, a real-life murder mystery in Tribeca brings together the nation's very first defense dream team. In post-Revolutionary War America, the system of jurisprudence had yet to evolve into the rule of law that we know today.
My quest to find the secrets of Tribeca brings me here, to the corner of Greenwich and Franklin Street. This spot is just blocks away from some major movie locations. It could happen to you, shot just a few blocks away. And who could forget ghosts?
Tribeca looks like a backlot. No coincidence that filmmakers come back to it again and again and again.
The scenic, angular streets of Tribeca make it the perfect location for movies of any setting or time.
So let's step back in time to 1799 to learn a little bit more about one of New York City's most notorious murder victims and her accused killer.
The corner of Greenwich and Franklin Streets was the location of an upscale boarding house.
The boarding house that was run by Mr. Ring was a perfectly respectable place. And it was actually nothing wrong with living in a boarding house in the city.
The young and beautiful Juliana Sands lived in the boarding house, and one floor above her was another boarder, the charming Levi Weeks.
Juliana Sands was fun-loving, vivacious, and known to have many suitors.
Alma was known to be a very attractive girl. She was very popular.
Levi Weeks was one of Manhattan's most eligible bachelors.
Levi was a charmer and a favorite with the ladies. Levi was a carpenter and his brother Ezra a builder, well-known builder.
It wasn't long before a flirtatious relationship began.
Juliana had confided to a few women in the boarding house that Levi had promised her marriage.
No one was to know this. Levi did not want anybody to know. The marriage was to be secret for a while.
She begged him to keep the impending marriage a secret, but confided that she and Levi were to elope.
The night of December 22nd, 1799 was a cold and moonlit night. Julielma was wearing her fineries and wore a muff for warmth. She was seen getting into a sleigh, but after that night, she was never seen alive again.
On the night of the murder, at about 8 p.m., witnesses swore they saw Julielma leave the boarding house.
Mr. and Mrs. Ring said at first that they had seen the two young people leave the house together.
At approximately 10 p.m., Levi returned to the boarding house alone.
3 days later, two young boys playing in Lispenard's meadow spotted a muff in the Manhattan well. It was the same exact muff that Julielma had borrowed from the boarding house proprietor.
"11 days after Julielma's mysterious disappearance, her relatives decided they should search the well.
And they did find Elma's body there.
Her body seemed to have signs of having been beaten. Her face was so clear.
The finger of suspicion pointed only toward one person, Levi Weeks. He was the last one to have seen her alive.
Levi Weeks was immediately arrested.
I don't believe he was suspected by the authorities until the Rings decided that he must have been the guy who did it.
The legal battle that ensued became the celebrity trial of its day.
Well, as soon as this lovely young lady was discovered in the well and it appeared in the newspapers, it became the topic. It was the great thing that everybody wanted to know about.
Everyone wanted Weeks found guilty. For his defense, he hired two of the most prominent attorneys of his day.
Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr were two very large personalities of their times, both lawyers, both very good lawyers. Not only competitive on the professional level, but very competitive on a very personal level.
And the secret? The Levi Weeks trial was the first recorded murder trial in America. And Hamilton and Burr were also the nation's first celebrity dream team. They ingeniously strategized a compelling defense that was based on blaming the victim.
Well, it turned out that this pair did a masterful job of defending the accused. It was very similar to the O.J. Simpson trial.
Calling into question Julielma's moral character proved easy.
Hamilton and Burr were very quick to bring testimony that Elma was not all that quiet as she was, and when we say she played around.
Despite the strong case of circumstantial evidence against Levi, he was acquitted. And as he exited the courthouse, New Yorkers greeted him with angry calls of murder.
After he was acquitted, his life was made miserable in New York.
The citizens of New York soon ran Levi Weeks out of town.
Immediately after the jury pronounced his verdict, Catherine Rain stood up in court and shouted at Hamilton, "If thee does not die an unnatural death, there was no justice in the world." And of course, 4 years later, Hamilton died at the hand of Catherine Rain.
2 centuries ago, the Manhattan well was at the edge of Lispenard's meadow. Today it can be found here in the basement of the Manhattan Bistro restaurant.
The Manhattan Well was built by the Manhattan Company.
The well in which Elma was found was built by Aaron Burr.
Was Levi Weeks really innocent or guilty? That has never been conclusively proven, but it is said that the ghost of Julielma Sands still wanders the streets of Tribeca in search of her murderer. My search for the secrets of Tribeca continues.
1850, the neighborhood of Washington Square is at the height of luxury in New York City, and over a century later, the lives of its wealthy residents are portrayed by Jennifer Jason Leigh and Albert Finney in the movie Washington Square. And also during that time, just a few blocks south, an upstate institution entrusted to safely transport money and gold is setting down roots in Tribeca. New York's Tribeca Film Festival has become an international film hub for celebrities and talented filmmakers from around the world. The American Express Company has been a Tribeca institution for a century and a half and is the founding sponsor of the Tribeca Film Festival.
The neighborhood of Tribeca is synonymous with the Tribeca Film Festival. The MX headquarters is located just a few blocks away from many famous movie sets. Films like Inside Man with Denzel Washington, or Hitch with Will Smith, You could forget Wall Street with Michael Douglas. All of these movies were shot nearby.
American Express has been located here in Lower Manhattan since 1850. We've had our business here, we've had our employees here, and we also do a lot of our philanthropy here.
A great many important companies and commercial enterprises of one sort or another were located in Tribeca.
In the mid-19th century, the nation as a whole began expanding westwards. This was the beginning of the era of express delivery services and the timely formation of the American Express Company.
The American Express Company got its name for making fast deliveries all across the country. These expressmen were in charge of guarding cash, gold, and other valuables during transit.
American Express delivered small parcels, delivered freight, they delivered a variety of goods.
In 1858, American Express opened its first headquarters building here in New York. It was the city's largest privately owned building right here in Tribeca.
Located on the corner of Hudson and J Streets, the company's new headquarters was in close proximity to the Hudson River Railroad.
And the rail line, which was on Hudson Street at that point, had a spur that went into the building. Horses and wagons would go in there too. Goods could be transferred directly from the rail cars onto horses and wagons, which they would then come roaring out and gallop across town.
There are few remnants here of the American Express Company's early days in Tribeca, and not far away, just a few blocks north, is my seat. This building on the corner of Collister and Hubert Streets was the site of the American Express Company stables. The stables kept the horses that carried precious cargo all across the country.
The American Express Company was very, very proud of its delivery horses. They were very, very well taken care of.
Amex's first mascot was not the figure of the centurion, but the face of a guard dog.
Long before the Centurion became the face of the American Express card, the guard dog was a famous symbol of the company. This symbol appeared on the company's letterhead and buildings and was an early embodiment of the company's role as a reliable and safe delivery service.
American Express Watchdog didn't just appear in one shape or form. They were different types of dogs, in fact. Depending upon the context in which the dog appeared, it would be different.
Here's the unknown. In 1905, American Express became the official currency exchange provider for the U.S. government. The company even had a teller window on Ellis Island to greet new Americans who wanted to exchange their foreign currency.
The newly built Ellis Island in 1892 was not just a center of processing the immigrants, it also offered services.
When immigrants, many of whom were carrying their life savings with them, would come to the teller windows, they would be assured of an honest currency exchange.
The first American Express card appeared in 1958. It was made of paper. A year later, the company was the first in the world to use plastic. And today, some of Amex's most exclusive members use credit cards made of titanium.
The company's evolution from a small business to a large company mirrors the rise of the Tribeca Film Festival.
It's been so successful that it's really expanded beyond Tribeca and it's become one of the world's most prominent film festivals.
I do think the Tribeca Festival has had a positive impact on filmmaking. It's really now regarded as kind of one of the premier festivals.
The festival began as a local event, but is now an international powerhouse of the movie-making industry. The neighborhood of Tribeca hosts the Tribeca Film Festival, and it's also served as a location for countless blockbuster films. My search through Tribeca's cinematic locations has revealed a firehouse with hidden treasure, an infamous murder, and an old stable that was the beginning of a global institution. The film festival may be known worldwide, but Tribeca's mysteries are local New York treasures. See you on the next Secrets of New York.